Yeah, obviously, really important result for us, given obviously the nature of what we had incurred the two games previous. We've played three ranked opponents in a row. So kind of splitting that series of games feels like with that win against George Mason, kind of just putting us back into a pretty well positioned place through the first five games of the season. So obviously, extremely pleased with what we generated from an attacking perspective. A few things to work on defensively, which the group have already addressed. And yeah, now we obviously turn our attention to along with team that do things a little bit differently. That'll be an interesting test for us, and a little home stance coming up here soon on what we hope is a brand new Dick Dlesk.
Just a reminder to use the hand raise if you have a question. So Nick, we'll start with you.
Cool, Dan. A lot there, man. So let's start with George Mason. 10 goals in the game. I guess what did you like about the way that your team continued to stay up in the attack even when leading by 2 or 3 goals late?
Yeah, I think we had a strategy that I felt through 30 minutes had worked almost perfectly in terms of the vision for what we were trying to do and achieve in that game had been executed incredibly well. And then obviously, a self-inflicted miscommunication leads to a penalty, and then the momentum completely shifts very, very quickly when they then score a second and make it 2-2 in a game that for probably the 28 minutes prior to that we really in control and had essentially been able to dictate the nature of how the game was played and probably most importantly where the game was played. So it was about sticking to that strategy at 3-2. Talked at halftime about how effective a lot of what we had done had worked, and don't let a difficult minute in the game really rattle us in the sense of what our game plan was. And then obviously get to 5-2 and you're feeling pretty good about things. And then another kind of self-inflicted penalty incident makes the game interesting again. And then a poor moment for us defensively on the corner. So it was an interesting one because, I think at the end of the game, some of those difficult moments we had defensively kind of tarnished what was a big time result for us. And the reality of scoring six against a ranked opponent and a worthy ranked opponent. I might add, George Mason has a very, very nice team. It just kind of took the gloss off of the quality of that win. But I also was quick to mention that we achieved something yesterday that the team in 2024 did not, which is a top 25 road win. And that it will, that'll be something that we'll look back on at the end of the season and feel like it hopefully puts us in really good stead for tournament resume time.
Quinn, we'll go to you.
Yeah, coach, you kind of just alluded to it, but you've mentioned time and time again about how big the RPI is when it comes down to the end of the season. How do you feel that, this non-conference schedule sets you up in the RPI ranks, especially like you just alluded to that win at George Mason?
Yeah, I think it's so difficult at the start of the year. So keep in context that I think if you were to look across the board within college athletics, looking specifically at men's soccer, it's so difficult to predict who's going to be where a year later. And there would have been no version of me that would have felt with a one loss regular season last year that we wouldn't have been a top five RPI team. And yet, the nature of what those results meant and the context of who we played, it was just unfortunate that certain teams had a slightly down year, and we didn't quite arrive from an RPI's perspective where we wanted to. So that means, the value of the Dayton game last year was huge. The value of only tying Marshall twice was huge because they were two big RPI games for us. Now, little did we know that we would have played three top quad one RPI games potentially already through the first five games when we began the schedule. We knew they'd be good games. But the way things are shaping up, we have the likes of High Point coming up here very soon. That'll be another top game. Central Florida, I think, will be a very strong game. Georgia Southern, I think, are perfect on the season following that. And then you have Kentucky and Marshall in the rankings right now as well. So it's hotting up to be a really strong RPI schedule for us. And again, those games are really, really important. But the other thing we learned from last year is it's probably okay to take a loss. It's one of those situations where losing a high RPI game doesn't hurt you as much as it can really, really help you. the challenge and the risk with that is you still got to make sure you get enough wins and accumulate enough wins over the course of the season to be in good stead. So there's no perfect science to it necessarily, especially in our sport. But as mentioned, I think the nature of where our RPI is heading with the quality of opponents we still have to come and have played so far, I feel pretty good about things.
Kevin, we'll go to you.
Another thing you mentioned in your opening statement, a brand new Dick Dlesk. How important is getting the pitch corrected and fixed, and how does that affect your play? How much do you think that will help you, in your play moving forward?
I hope the smile revealed it all. Listen, it's been huge, and it's been a significant challenge. We get a lot of statistical data from each game, and we have seen, statistically speaking, that we're not where we normally would be and have been in previous years. So, when we're unable to complete 10% as many passes as we normally do, and only completing about 100 passes less than we would normally do based on 5 years of data, that's not a reflection of the group we have, because we know what we have within our squad. It's contextual to, sadly, the nature of where the field was. I think probably the most important thing that maybe doesn't come across with what the challenges have been is, it's one thing for the surface to be a little uneven, a little bit more difficult, but it's been a very, very difficult surface for the players' footing. So the physical load that it requires for them to change direction when the ground is not stable and moving a little bit under their feet, it increases the workload. So Ignacio Martinez ran 14 kilometers, which is an unbelievable number. We wouldn't normally average anything, too many people over 11 or 12 kilometers for a full game. That was his game against Gardner Webb the other day, compounded by the fact that I know that the load that's required to cut, to change direction, to explode, to accelerate, decelerate quickly is far more demanding on the nature of where the surface had got to, sadly. So I'm incredibly grateful to our administration, to my sport oversight, to Natasha, Rob Alsop, and ultimately Ren, to recognize that this was huge. This was pivotal to recruitment, retention, and results. Those 3 R's were something that, I'll be honest, were causing me an incredible amount of stress. And now we have a 3-1-1 record with good resume teams that we've played early in the season. Obviously, an adjustment to the schedule takes us to Longwood this week, but a worthy sacrifice that we were very much prepared to make to create this window to relay the field. And I hope now there should be no excuses. And the group will be invigorated and kind of really re-energized to start another, hopefully a really long homestand of undefeated record, which Nick will be pleased to hear.
Nick, we'll go back to you.
I feel like that was a dig, Dan. I got to be honest.
It was not a dig. It was not a dig. I'm very proud of what our teams have achieved over the span of four seasons, technically 22 to now, 22, 23, 24, 25, and something like that never lasts forever. But to go over 1,000 days and to have a home record that spans over four seasons of being undefeated is something really special, and again something that we'll have to work really, really hard to try and achieve again.
There is still an unbeaten streak in conference matches dating back to the spring of 2021, for the record. So we can talk about that some other time, though. You mentioned RPI games and not necessarily having bad losses in those games. Like, you had an entirely new team, right? Like, you have 15 new guys and changed formations 4 days before the season started. You've been pretty transparent about the way that you guys have gone about things. So, like, how much have you learned about your team playing 3 ranked matches in quick succession?
Yeah, maybe to wrap up the previous point, part of the rationale for changing the formation was the nature of what we were playing on. So again, perhaps the stress that was being caused for me was that you have a plan with what you think your intended group and depth will look like, and come to a realization that probably what we were going to ask our players to do was probably with too much risk, given the nature of where the field was at, and we had to make a change. So I was really, really proud of the mentality the players showed and the adjustment that we saw in the final preseason game against Robert Morris, and then obviously into Manhattan and LaSalle. But I think the bigger piece of the equation for us right now, and probably my biggest headache, is just the quality of depth. And I've been very, very open with the players that from top to the bottom of this 28-man roster, it's been incredibly challenging to feel as though everyone's getting what they deserve, because there are so many deserving players within our group right now that can contribute positively to the group. So it's tricky. We have seniors that have 3-4 months left in their collegiate careers that want to make a lasting impact and finish with a big impact. We have some great freshmen and sophomores that want more and really want to make their mark as soon as they possibly can. And there just simply aren't enough minutes and positions on the field available for me to keep everyone happy. So it's so important that this group is really, really selfless and kind of buys into this idea that it's not going to be the 11, it's going to be the entire squad that get us over the line. One of my players today, funnily enough, made me aware that we've had 17 different people that have started a game this season. I didn't appreciate that stat. What I shared with them was prior to yesterday, at least, George Mason had only used 15 players total on the season. So we're in a fortunate position that we have almost an embarrassment of riches in some areas of the field. I think we're extremely deep in our attacking areas and midfield areas, as well as along the back line. So it's not without its challenges. So to that point, Nick, I think we're still going through this process of trying to establish. At some point, we need to settle on something closer to an 11 or a bit more of a consistent theme within the group, and give them a little bit more clarity as to where each of them are individually. But we're continually towing the line of what that balance is and how people can improve their position within the group through their efforts in training and their qualities when they come in off the bench. So probably the overwhelming answer is that we have a ton of depth. And then the secondary answer is, due to that, we're having a really difficult time as a staff trying to settle on what's the best 11 and what's the best way to set up in order to accommodate as many of the qualities as we have as possible.
Nick, you have another question?
I do, and it's a follow-up on that, Dan. To complicate the depth piece, you've got Juan Alvarez, who scores in his first start for WVU. Where does he fit into all this, and what do you like about him as a player?
Special player, yeah. Excited to have him available. Obviously, an eligibility issue forced him to sit for the first 4 games. So pleased to have him back in the mix for us. And I think again the fact that we were more than prepared to throw him straight into the starting lineup in his first game should speak volumes of the quality of player that we think he will be. His ball retention, close skills, left foot are excellent, high level. He has a low center of gravity, and he's sneaky strong as well. Like, it's very, very difficult to dispossess him. So ball retention qualities are huge, and obviously we're hopeful that will align with an attacking productivity such as the one we saw yesterday with his first goal. So extremely pleased for him, but a great kid, great human being as well, that worked really, really hard and was very, very patient through this period of having to kind of sit through and watch his teammates, knowing that he couldn't really help through the first 4 games. So happy that we were able to reward him with a start in his first opportunity to play, and even more happy that he got the goal.
Devin, go back to you.
So the formation changes, the tactical changes that Nick referenced, more geared toward fixing something you saw in the preseason, or your roster issues that you're talking about, trying to get the best people more time?
A little bit of both. The initial feeling was fixing some of the concerns that the field might create. We're a possession-oriented team. We've averaged around 60% of the ball through the 5 years that I've been here. And I think we needed to make a change that gave us a little bit more security at the back and perhaps a little more of an outlet going forward. So we have been a bit more vertical and a bit more direct than we would normally be, which is some cases why you've seen Pablo and Marcus up there together. This is the first time since I've been here that we have played with the front 2, for example. But what came as a nice evolution of that was again, there's a lot of attacking qualities, and there's absolutely a version of events where Pablo and Marcus deserve to play and can play together. So I think if you were to look at the starting lineup yesterday, probably with the exception of, you see Carlos, Tristan, Tice, and Nacho, who are more defensive oriented players. The other six that we picked are all attacking oriented players. So that's definitely where we feel like that we have the most strength and depth. And when I then think of the guys that came in off the bench that have incredible qualities as well, as I said, there's a real threat that we can create and pose to teams. We just got to make sure we get that balance right of not being too attacking, making sure that we still have enough defensively to shore things up. Obviously, the irony being that we won 6-4 yesterday, but we have to find that balance and understand that we won't always score 6, but we certainly don't intend to concede 4 all that often, if ever again.
Anybody else? Or Quinn, I have no question.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of guys, different guys find the back of the net this season. Felix finds his first of the season against George Mason. How big is it that now you're seeing Pablo, Marcus, and different guys, start to score? Because if one person's shut down, you can go find another.
Yeah, I think we're in a fortunate position. As I said, the attack in depth is there. We've had some meetings today, and we're really confident that Antonio Lima is going to be on the end of one here soon, and get his name on the score sheet and then the assist sheet. So there are many more that will have something to say about our attacking output and strictly those stats, right? The goals and assists. But yeah, there are very few complaints from our perspective on what our attacking output has been. To be completely honest, I did feel like the nature of how the Gardner Webb game evolved, we deserved to get something from the game, and should be disappointed that we didn't take one of our chances towards the end of the game there, and at least come away with a draw. But outside of that, it would be hard to be overly critical of what we've done from an attacking perspective. We had a poor performance at Akron, yet showed our defensive qualities and played a team that I'm not sure they've conceded a goal yet this season. So we knew that was obviously going to be a difficult task. But again, at the same time, I feel as though we have more than 2 players per position in those attacking areas that can be a real threat and have an impact. And many of the names you've mentioned, and many of them are still very much planning to make a name for themselves before the end of the season.